I gotta try the shotgun just because it's,
okay.
it's so unique.
You gotta be kidding me.
That thing is awesome. I mean, the Second Amendment for us, for me, it's not just a passion and a hobby that I do every weekend. I mean, it's a lifestyle. It's the thing that they thought of, that our founding fathers thought of right after free speech and religion. I mean, this wasn't an afterthought afterwards. I mean, it's a basic right of an American, and we have to defend that.
It's basically the things that make us human, right? That allow us to be human, to have free thought and religion, and to
ultimately defend it.
And and then right after that is to defend it. And
this wasn't an afterthought.
No.
Years later. I mean, this is. I mean, the most basic aspect being the first, the second to protect that, and that can't be at risk. And when I see, our opponent, and Hillary Clinton in this case, talking about the Supreme Court and getting the Heller decision wrong, and for those who don't know, that was basically the Supreme Court said you have a right in a 5-4 decision. So this wasn't like a 9-0 decision. This was a 5-4. Anthony Scalia was the justice that gave us that fifth vote, and he now passed. She said 5-4 that you have the right to keep a firearm in your home. That's it. Not concealed carry, certainly not anything about suppression, certainly not anything about Class 3, just the right to keep a firearm in your home. And she says the Supreme Court got that wrong. I mean, that's scary to me as an American, because what's next? You lose that right to protect yourselves. How about me? I'm a business guy. These days I'm a politician. I've been a politician for 2.5 weeks now, but I'm on the road a lot. I have 5 children at home. I have a wife. She's a tough woman. She puts up with me and she puts up with my kids and does a great job raising them. But, she can't stop an aggressive bad guy that's out to get it. She can't do that by herself. She needs that, and she has a concealed weapons permit, and she practices with me, and she enjoys it, and it's a big part of our lifestyle. And we have to be able to defend ourselves, because all the legislation that's out there today, all the rules, first, they're made by people who've obviously never picked up a firearm. I love watching these politicians talk about firearms and the 30-round clips and the ridiculous. They just don't even understand the terminology, and yet they're making legislation about something they don't understand, and have never shot. It's scary because it's not made with logic, and it's only designed to impede rights of law-abiding citizens, because criminals, by definition, won't follow the laws. So why would you hurt someone and infringe upon their rights when they're the only ones that are actually going to follow it? Law-abiding citizens will follow those laws.
Let's stack more laws. I mean, inherently, obviously, in our laws, you cannot murder somebody, right? So if you're going to go and commit murder, how many laws do you think that more laws stacked on top of don't kill somebody is going to actually keep a criminal or somebody that wants to do you harm from doing that?
So I live in New York State, right? I call it the People's Republic of New York now because, I'm a competitive shooter. I'm a competitive high-power shooter, a long-range shooter, and I can't even order components through the mail anymore. Components. So I can't. I have to order those through an FFL. My high-power guns, because they're on an AR platform. If something were to happen to them, I couldn't buy a new one in my own state. Now, I'm a law-abiding citizen. I'm going to play by those rules, whether I like them or not, or maybe I'll move. But right now, I'm bound by that. But someone who's looking to do me harm, he's not. Look at the SAFE Act when it was passed in, quote-unquote SAFE Act, passed in New York. The day it was passed and crammed through legislation and overnight so that someone could get credit for being the first to act, every law-abiding police officer was committing a felony by having 10-round magazines because they didn't even think. It was just legislation for the sake of legislation. Just like government is bureaucracy for the sake of bureaucracy at this point. Just more rules and more government in your boardrooms, in your daily life, in your business, in your bedroom. We want to eliminate that. We want to allow law-abiding citizens to exercise their rights and go after the people who are actually committing crimes.
As crazy it is, as the laws in New York are, I mean, the scary thing is that would be under a Clinton regime, that would be nothing. I mean,
that would be a conservative case, where everything else goes. And I mean, when you see it, when they're talking about buying bullets online, not ammo. I'm talking just bullets for reloading. What am I going to do? Shoot at someone with a slingshot? to have to go through an FFL and having laws passed to start talking about trying to do that, I mean, that's ridiculous. And again, the only people that are going to be penalized are the people who will actually play by the laws, which are people like you and I.
Agreed. You talked a little bit about your family. Obviously, you're a family man, and something that I love about the Trump family is that how close you all are, and how you all seem to have your head on your shoulders really well, and it's fun to watch as a family man to watch on TV, and I can trust that that the values that are instilled as your father is president are going to be based around that love for family, which is a great thing for me. But I want to talk a little bit about when you started shooting and when you developed your passion for shooting, hunting, and did you do that with your father, and do you do that with your children?
Well, my children are all getting into it. I mean, I took my 7-year-old to the Yukon this summer and risked my only excursion because I've been on the campaign trail. I've been working hard, and I got one because we went with Mark Geis, one of the survivors from Benghazi, who's become a close friend of mine, and came out for us early, and we sort of hit it off, became buddies, and someone offered to pay a really good amount of money to go on a hunt with him and I in the Yukon. So, for his foundation for the Benghazi survivors and the ones who perished. So I said, that's one I have to do. That's one I can get away from the trail for a week to do. And I was able to bring my little guy up into the woods with me and risk my whole excursion to expose them to that. But when you take a kid into the woods, you get him off a couch away from a video game and take him into the woods, and you know what? They'll rise to the occasion. He was like a little mountain goat. He was as tough as anyone else in camp, and it was great to be able to do that. So for me, it's not just, I see all the politicians when they go, they show up for their photo op with a shotgun and the fingers on the trigger, the safety's off, they're pointing it at someone's face and they're pretending they know what they're doing. And then you ask the guys, so what happened? He's like, well, he shot a box of shells and didn't touch a feather. It's pretty amazing. That's not the way we were. For me, I got into it young. I was, unlikely candidate to be sort of an outspoken spokesperson perhaps for the outdoors, for shooting, for hunting, for fishing, because I grew up in New York City. But I had a grandfather who was a blue-collar guy from communist Czechoslovakia. This was the early 80s when it was a very different situation. But he had conversations with my father, which is, listen, what your kids have in New York is incredible. Great education, great lifestyle, very fortunate to have all these things. And my father recognized that and knew that as well. But he's like, you have to see the other side. And my father agreed with that entirely. That's why I always joke, I'm the only son of a billionaire who can drive a D10 Caterpillar, because those were the kind of jobs we did. He made us work those jobs, get dirty, do it. Because one day if you're going to build a building yourself, you better well know how to do it yourself. And so my father agreed. And so from the age of 5, I spoke the language fluently, because my grandfather was a big part of my life growing up. And he would take me to communist Czechoslovakia. And he'd say, there's the woods, I'll see you at dark. He's an old school kind of guy, and he taught me how to shoot a bow, and he taught me how to fish, and he couldn't hunt because he wasn't, a Communist Party elite guy. He was just an electrician. But he got me into the woods, and every night was around a campfire, and that family experience was just so amazing, and it's that kind of family experience that I wish you had more of in America, because I think the family structure is something that's just been greatly eroded in many cases around the country, and if you could bring that back, there's a lot you could do with that. So that started it, and then I went to boarding school at a young age. I wanted to get out of New York City, parents going through a difficult divorce, and I went to boarding school in central Pennsylvania, and there was a guy there, one of these old school, just great shots, and this was an old school kind of place. We were a big feeder school to the Naval Academy and to West Point, and so all-guy boarding school in central Pennsylvania, had a rifle range on campus, had a trap and skeet range there, and the guy that headed up was the dean of students, and he saw that I had a passion for it, he saw that I had an ability for it, and he was one of those guys that could run a round of skeet with a 410 pump, old Winchester Model 42, just 25 every time. I was just, in awe, and so I learned a lot from him, and one day he just said, I'll see you tomorrow, Saturday, in the parking lot, 6 a.m., dress warm. And I had no idea what was coming. Today you may look a little differently on an opportunity like that, but this was a great guy, and I trusted him full-heartedly. And I went. He took me on my first upland bird shoot, and I just fell in love. And from there, it was just every time, read a book about it, get a magazine about it, ask someone who knew more, find a mentor, and that's the biggest thing to keep this tradition, whether it be shooting, whether it be hunting, whether it be fishing. Be a mentor to someone else, teach them and. If you can get a kid off a couch and away from a video game and into the woods, you're doing them a big service for life.
This has gone on too long, and it's time the entire country stood up against the NRA.